Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's stories feature more entitled parents. You ever have an issue with somebody at the beach taking or moving your stuff? This first story by TigerLily47 is for you. Story that happened to me yesterday. I'm on vacation at a touristy beach spot. Went out around mid-morning to the beach before the crowds and set up my towel, umbrella, chair, cooler, etc. Around 11 a.m. while laying on my towel tanning with headphones in, I get a tap on my shoulder. Open my eyes to a middle-aged woman standing over me and her family and young kids starting to set up multiple umbrellas, chairs, toys about 10 feet behind me. When I took the headphones out, the woman proceeds to tell me that my bathing suit is inappropriate to be around her children and so I will need to move. Note, bathing suit is a cheeky bikini bottom, but not a thong. I tell her I was there first. They can find somewhere else to set up if it offends her. She proceeds to say there's no other spots close to the water. I tell her I'm not moving and put my headphones back in. About an hour later, I decide to hop in the water for a dip to cool off. While in the water, I look at the shoreline and the woman has packed up my stuff with her husband and is carrying it away from the area. I hop out of the water and get a lifeguard to call beach security while I watch them walking my stuff up the beach to relocate it. Beach security and myself approach them. They try to play dumb and say it's their stuff, so are asked to open the wallet and show ID. Surprise! It's my ID. Cops are then called, and I chose to press charges for theft. And I got my spot back, since the family was escorted or kicked off the beach. This happens to people so often, not specifically this. They were moving their stuff, which is still not okay. But people have their stuff stolen while they're in the water. It kind of sucks to have to watch the beach and make sure your stuff isn't being messed with, but it happens all the time. Story 2 is by Dr. Oogie Boogie 42. This happened in 2009 when I was 15 and my sister was 11. I honestly don't remember it well. I had to call my mother to fill me in on some details, and it helped a little. My parents got divorced when I was 10. My mother got primary custody, but we stayed with my father for about 3 days a week, sometimes more. They took turns celebrating the holidays with us. We'd spend them with one parent in 1 year, and with the other parent the next. In March 2009, my father and his then-girlfriend Molly broke up after he confessed to cheating with the woman that eventually became stepmother. Years later, I found out that that affair had been going on for almost 2 years by the time he told Molly. He introduced stepmother to us in May, on my birthday actually, and they almost immediately announced their engagement. From that moment, she started trying to force us all to be a happy blended family, which usually meant forcing us to do everything she, or sometimes my stepbrother, wanted, and pretending my mom wasn't in the picture. Stepmother and my dad started pushing my mom to leave us with them a lot more often than my parents had previously agreed, but she thankfully wouldn't budge. We started getting ready for the holidays in November, and stepmother started talking about a ski resort. Hotel? I don't know. It was 14 years ago that she wanted to visit with us. It was a 3-hour car drive from where we lived and was clearly more suited for couples, younger children, or the elderly. Neither me or my sister actually wanted to go. But before we could say that, stepmother asked us when we'd be done with school so that she could book it for a 2-week trip during our winter break. I was happy to be the one to break it to her. We'd spent Christmas and New Year's Day with my father and Molly the year before, so it was my mom's turn to have us. My father and stepmother called my mother dozens of times to try to convince her to let them take us, insisting that stepmother was excited to spend Christmas with us and that the previous year's holidays didn't count because we'd spent them with Molly. My mom said no, as she'd already made plans, and the subject was dropped for a few weeks. Then, on our last day of school before winter break, stepmother picked me and my sister up from our schools. That was fine. We were supposed to spend a couple days with my father before the holidays. What wasn't fine, that the moment we got into the car, stepmother said, "We're going to the ski resort. Surprise!" She'd proceeded to tell us that they'd already packed our bags for us and Dad would meet us there. I asked if my mom knew about this, and she said, sure, but I knew that was a lie. I also didn't believe her when she said we'd only be there for a couple days and we'd be back before Christmas. I figured they'd booked the 2-week stay they wanted and would probably guilt trip us both into staying once their couple of days was up. I was terrified. I didn't have a phone. My mom thought I was still too young to have one. Didn't trust stepmother, and I could see my sister was even more scared. I told stepmother we didn't want to go. She said, fine, let's just pick stepbrother up from school. We picked him up from school. Stepmother said, okay, now let's go to the resort. I said, again, that we didn't want to go. She said, fine, let's just find a gas station and fill up. That pattern repeated itself about 6 times over the next hour. Every time I said we didn't want to go, stepmother would make up an excuse and pretend to forget my plea. As we were about to leave town, my dad called stepmother. I heard them fighting for a few minutes about something, and then she hung up. Stepbrother asked what happened, but she didn't answer. Then she said, I'm taking you kids to your mom's. She turned the car around and took us home. When she got there, my mom pulled us out of the car and screamed at the stepmother to leave, which she did. My mom was hugging us and bawling as if she hadn't seen us in years. She didn't tell me the full story until a few days later. Basically, my mom called my dad in a panic because he'd never told her we'd gotten home, which he always did whenever he picked us up from school. He was hoping she wouldn't call until we were already at the resort. My father knew that lying would do more harm than good, so he told her their plans. He tried to spin it around to something my sister wanted, but my mother didn't buy it. She told him that if stepmother didn't take us back to her place, she'd call the police. My father and stepmother took my stepbrother to the resort. For a few months after, they bragged about all the fun they'd had and all the things that me and my sister had missed. Stepbrother later confided in me that he actually hated it. He barely saw his mom while they were there, and he spent Christmas mostly alone in their room. Stepmother called us both selfish for trying to ruin their holidays. My sister actually felt guilty for a while, and I had to reassure her. My mom didn't call the cops or press charges. At the time, she didn't know if what stepmother did would qualify as a crime or if they'd actually help. She also feared that would ruin our relationship with my father, with whom she was still trying to stay on amicable terms. Years later, she told me she regretted not calling anyone. And that's the story of how I got my first phone. For some reason, I really hate this story, so much that I avoid talking about it. This text was actually on my drafts for almost a week. It's far from the worst thing that stepmother has ever done, but it still angers me. I admit that writing it all down did help a little, though. Our next story is by Trada Truff. I love my mom. She's lived with me for the last 5 years, and although I'm not miserable, I could really live alone with just being my daughter, but she insists she cannot live alone anymore. I work 2 jobs and am not home often. Me and my mom have gotten into it pretty intensely about her being in my bedroom and helping herself to my belongings. I have an extreme aversion to people touching my stuff, almost like a panic. And I've told her if she wants something, let me know and I'll buy it for her. Do not touch mine. She feels like because we're family, and supposedly she wouldn't mind me using her things, it should be okay and gets super offended. She has mostly backed off though. What she has moved on to is going through my trash. It's my daughter's job to collect and take out the trash, and she does it when I'm still at work. My mom just takes that time to look through the trash cans from my bedroom and my desk to see if there's anything she can use. She's also a mild hoarder. She didn't learn her lesson when she found what appeared to be an entire untouched box of chocolates in my trash and bragged to me about eating them, only for me to tell her they all fell out under my bed and got covered in dust, cobwebs, etc. She says that once I throw something away, it's fair game and I'm being selfish. But I feel like it's super invasive to go through someone's garbage. Plus, I'm tired of her saving dumb stuff from the trash and filling up the house with it. I'm going to buy a trash can with a lid and some bags, and I will tie that up on trash day. but I know it will lead to her feeling called out and thus an argument. She was so scandalized when I started locking my bedroom door for a while. Ugh. This is really gross that she digs through your trash, and it would bother me too if she went into my bedroom regularly looking for things that she could just use. And there's not really much you can do because she says she can't live by herself, so you have to have her there. But the lock on your door was a good move, and it's still gross that she goes through your trash, though. That's disgusting. Our stories for today have come to a close. Until we meet again, have a gratifying day.